Highlights has connected with children in a way that I don't think anything else has.
Highlights magazine is an American icon.
It is one of the few general interest magazines for children.
It's 44 pages, and that's including the covers. That's not a whole lot every month.
We don't accept any advertising on our pages, so it's commercial-free completely.
We make it for kids ages 6 to 12.
We're very proud to reach at least 2 million households each month.
We've been around for 70 years. We're family-run by a family that strongly believes in what we're doing.
Highlights has managed to weather a lot of storms.
We are trying to create a magazine for kids today that is going to resonate with them.
It's that emotional connection. That's what makes Highlights so special to children.
I'm Judy Burke. I'm the editor of Highlights magazine. I oversee the content that goes into the magazine and putting it together. I started as an intern, and this is where I ended up. I know that my 9-year-old self would be really excited that I was working at Highlights. The editorial staff is people who love to read. It's people who love kids. We say children are the world's most important people, and we believe that. We want kids to become creative, caring, curious, and confident. We're always looking for the story. We're always looking for kids to connect. So today we had our nomination and plan and balance meetings for the magazine. All the editors pitch the stuff that they brought forward. We ask questions and we try to get to the best mix for each particular issue. All right, guys, June, as you know, this is also our 70th anniversary issue. As you're nominating, if you do think of anything that kind of might lend itself in an easy way to 70th anniversary, feel free to throw it out there. Kid appeal has to come first. It's got to be fun for our readers. Our earliest stages of planning are a full year in advance. Compared to the pace of a newspaper, they would laugh at us. Each spread and each feature contains a million tiny decisions to be made. So this is the beginning. This is the beginning of the ride.
Story features children stealers. It's about child trafficking. So.
What?
Yeah.
Is it fiction?
It's fiction.
Oh,
yeah.
all right. Well, that's good.
These are all freelance submissions, unsolicited. We get a couple hundred, maybe close to 300 a month. Good thing most of them are quick. If we like something, we'll buy it at the time it comes in and then keep it until it seems to fit with the overall balance of an issue. So like I could buy something today for Valentine's Day and it might not run until February 2019. I haven't found anything I really like yet in this stack. And then there were a couple stories that had witches in them and Santa Claus in them, and we don't have Santa or witches in Highlights. Witches we don't cover to respect the Wiccan community's feeling about witches and the portrayal of them as being dark and scary, whereas a lot of Wiccan people are not. No witches, no Santa, no child trafficking.
Yeah, pretty standard.
I read all of the nonfiction manuscripts that come in. The first thing I do is I flip to the back to see if there's a bibliography. If there isn't, I send it back. I always have a stack of rejection letters because we have a very, very stringent vetting process here. We have an obligation to our readers. We have an obligation to kids. There's language that we perhaps wouldn't use. There's a sensitivity to certain subjects. You know, we now vet things very, very carefully through organizations for disabilities and race issues and religion. We make sure everything is vetted for sensitivity issues as well as accuracy. This is a piece that we have scheduled for June called North American Porcupines. And I've written that we want photos. You know, it's always better to have a photo in a nonfiction piece if you possibly can.
This is our inventory of all paper manuscripts that we have. This file is for 1994 through the present, and then below that is 1980 to 1993. They're not technically retired, and it's possible that a manuscript in here would still get published, but most likely at this point there was a reason it didn't make it in. It's tricky.
I'm the editor-in-chief of Highlights, and I've been here 22 years. When it began in 1946, it was for kids 2 to 12. And that worked beautifully back then because I think families were bigger then. There were fewer mothers working. The family dynamics are different now, so it's harder to make that work.
Kids are impressionable, and that's a big responsibility. There's a lot your kids are exposed to at a younger age.
Peer pressure concerns or the outside influences. They're getting older faster. They're experiencing more things and being in that world faster than they maybe would have been 20 or 30 years ago. I think it's already affecting the magazine.
I've just recently, because of the app development thing, been reading a lot about how much time kids are spending on their devices. Can we think of a Goofus and Gallant that might reflect that growing trend and help kids be more thoughtful about?
I think we have one scheduled already.
We also had a Dear Highlights letter about that.
Yeah.
Good. I think we ought to do that with some frequency because increasingly
Yeah.
that's becoming a concern.
Yeah,
Kids and families.
they're asking, I can't quit playing this game.
Yeah, my dad has an app on his phone that I
Right.
can't stop playing. What should I do?
Okay, good.
All right, June. Robotics, let's give that a nice spot up front since it's new. Yeah.
and Patrick's going to
Let's
make
play it
a
up a
great
little bit.
design.
Let's put it opposite Goofus and Gallant. What do you think about that?
Yeah, what's there now? Nothing?
We have an open space here. All right, pizza construction. What do you think?
Oh,
center
center
spread? Unanimous? All right. Crafts has Father's Day. We've got that elephant. We've got the card.
That's gonna be a great craft spread.
Do you think with the craft, that was the pop? One thing I always worry about with Father's Day and Mother's Day, the kids who don't have fathers or the kids who don't have mothers, if we decide to use that craft, can we do 2 versions, grand pop and pop?
Yeah, maybe
Well, the
remake
colors are
that.
more vibrant as well.
You might want to think about remaking that one.
All right, we have that great mathematician piece.
Feels a little old
Yeah.
for our audience. And not everything has to appeal to every reader. I mean, as adults, we don't read our magazines that way. But, boy, 2 pages is a lot of real estate in this little magazine. And if it's only going to appeal to a sliver of our readers.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we're running out of room already.
Is there anything from another culture in there?
Even our porcupines are North American in this.
Right, I saw that.
Even our porcupines are domestic. This being the 70th anniversary issue, the question is always, do kids care that it's our 70th anniversary? Does that make us sound ancient to them? It's older than their grandparents?
I'd love to do a little informal focus groups with some kids and find out.
Do you care?
Yeah, right. What does it mean to you? What do you
Right.
think when you hear that? Highlights is 70 years old. I don't think we know.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
June 2016 is our 70th birthday at Highlights. Yeah,
How long have you been working here?
not 70 years. Do you think it's cool that Highlights has been around for 70 years?
Yeah.
It was actually 1946.
Wow.
Do you know what the world was like in 1946?
No.
Any guesses?
Black and white. Everything. How am I supposed to know? I'm just a little kid.
But do you think we should tell people it's our 70th birthday, or do you think kids will be like, who cares?
Yes, you should.
We should tell people.
I think kids would care.
You think so?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. That's kind of what we thought.
Welcome to the archive area at Highlights. A lot of paper, documents, letters, correspondence, product. Highlights started with my grandparents because it was their dream. They were professionals their whole life in parenting and in child development. And through that, they just developed a philosophy about children and about childhood that they were passionate about. And they also started working with other magazines. So here's children's activities. And here is the first Goofus and Gallant. They started as little elves. Goofus is the bad and Gallant is the good, always. And so when the time came for them to retire, instead, they decided they were going to have a second career, and they were going to create this magazine. This is the actual Telegraph where they were fired by Children's Activities because they were planning on starting their own magazine. And that was in March of 1946, and this magazine came out in June. This is the first issue of Highlights. This was the first hidden picture. It had a very, very rocky beginning. About 4 years into it, my grandparents, who were wonderful, wonderful editors and creators, but knew nothing about business, really were totally out of money. And at that point, their children mobilized, and my father, who was a 28-year-old aeronautical engineer, decided to take a 6-month leave from his job and see if he couldn't help his parents close it down. But instead, when he got there and he started looking into it, he decided that he could make it go. My dad rolled out this program to put Highlights into doctors' and dentists' offices, and that really is what made Highlights take off and sustain us so that we could earn enough money that we could definitely grow and continue. In 1960, my parents decided they wanted to take a trip to New York, actually to meet with a person about putting Highlights on newsstands. They took with them another vice president, and they went into New York in a snowstorm. And there was a mid-air collision between two planes. One of the planes landed on a street in Brooklyn. Both of the airplanes, everyone on those airplanes lost their lives. And Gary and Mary and Cy all died. And when that happened, then of course there were 5 children. And we actually went and lived with my Uncle Jack in Texas. And for Highlights, my grandparents are in their 70s. They had just reached 500,000 subscribers. Highlights survived. My grandparents just decided that they were going to go forward. As a family, it was very difficult, yes, yeah. And it was for many years, but you know, we all made it through. So that's what happens.
Highlights is in a mansion. Like, it's pretty cool. It's a very unconventional office space.
We're lucky to work in such a neat old building. It makes you want to be creative. It makes you want to do the best job possible for these kids.
The work life here, it's unlike anywhere else I've worked.
They do psychological testing on you before you're hired here. I distrusted it when I first came here. I thought, this has got to be disingenuous. How is it possible that people are in this good a mood all of the time?
I think we try to bring out the best in each other. I think we try to really just encourage each other and boost each other up.
As far as wholesomeness, I mean, I hate that word because it sounds like goody-goody. And that's not what we are here. I mean, we're just honest, genuine, ethical people.
It's a good brainwash, but yeah, it takes you over.
We're in a bubble of sorts. Our minds are so entrenched and, focused on like the, children and being kind and being thoughtful. And the rest of the world isn't like that, And if they are, it's false. I don't know. I'm very disappointed,
It is a little different here. It's quiet. The socioeconomic level is maybe not reflective of many of our readers. So we do work hard to make sure that we are not too secluded and too isolated from the rest of the world.
Honesdale is a pretty little town in the very northeast corner of Pennsylvania. It's a very small town. It's probably 4,000 or 5,000 people in center city, center town Honesdale, if you will.
Judy, during my interview, really emphasized, she's like, it's a small town. It's like 5,000 people. I was like, that town is smaller than my high school? All right, that's fine, it's cool, it's cool.
We are a little secluded up here in the northernmost part of the Pocono Mountains. It's grown in the 22 years I've been here. We now have a movie theater and a bowling alley. When I moved here, we didn't have either.
When I first came, I was a little worried that I would not find enough to do. Everything shuts down at 6 p.m. Everybody seems so nice and so friendly. But then I think I was kind of relieved when I found out it wasn't this make-believe land.
I think it's a benefit to publish Highlights magazine in a town like this. We send editors to the schools and they talk to the kids. I don't think there's anybody who went through the school system here who didn't do the second grade tour of Highlights. In Columbus, that's where the marketing happens. We have our finance and our accounting, and I have a little foot there in that world and a bigger footprint here in this world.
For the June issue, each editor does this. Read the whole thing over a couple times, verify things, confirm things. You want to make sure everything in that piece is relevant to the whole. And the whole time you're also thinking visually. What pieces of art might make this more fun and engaging? What's the best format we can have this copy in to present it to kids?
My entire world is children's literature. I never outgrew children's books. I feel like this is my niche. This is where I belong. Allison and I work really well together. We both love laughing about that kind of stuff that kids send in that we can't put into Highlights. It's fun to have a best friend that you work across from. This kid wrote a song about Highlights. He says, it's rainy outside. I get my magazine about hidden pictures and poems that kids like to read. Oh, oh, oh. Highlights, the really best magazine. Oh, oh, yeah. And then it repeats.
I like that.
Yeah. Oh, he also has a trumpet part, so that's cool.
My responsibilities are kind of all over the place. I do all the poetry and all of the puzzles. And then I do the Dear Highlights page where we answer kids' questions, and the Picture Puzzler page, which is a big visual puzzle on the inside back cover every month. We've published poems from Lewis Carroll. We've done Carl Sandburg, Ogden Nash, Emily Dickinson, Langston Hughes, Rita Dove. Lots of famous poets we've tried to expose kids to.
Technically, our copy is due to start circulating like a couple days ago. So, yeah, not there. So for this issue, I decided it'd be fun to do something with recipes. Always trying to think what would interest a child. Pizza, who doesn't love pizza? Right now, the stage of that is, I have so many possibilities. So it's trying to decide, okay, which ones are we really gonna use? One of the reasons everybody's very excited about the pizzas is because we will try them out. So everyone will be eating pizza and smelling pizza.
Oh no.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, this could be better organized. That's good though. We're testing things at the most challenging level. Oh God, this is scary.
Better not mess up.
My favorite thing about you is how supportive you are.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Do you need a study break?
The thing about those is that the salsa is kind of watery, and so is the guacamole.
It is good. The flavor is very good. The sogginess does bug me.
Yeah.
Come on in, Chris.
How'd it turn out? I'm trying. This is good. These are kind of soggy. You don't want to try?
Still tasty.
That was not very enthusiastic. Well, despite your enticing, I think I'll pass.
I'm working on copy, and different manuscripts require different amounts of editing. In terms of fiction, I look for some big things like structural, just parts of the story that could be beefed up, or extraneous parts taken out. You know, a lot can be done just by cutting out adverbs. I personally enjoy the manuscripts that need a lot of work because it's, I don't know, it's fun to edit.
Annie's saying to cut the front and back of a monster's head from the foam and glue thin cardboard to one side of the shape. So I just want to see if, in fact, that actually happened. That's why I'm here. I have to check. I'm the quality control person. I make sure that all the commas and the periods and the quotation marks and the dashes, M dashes and N dashes are in the right places. I check for grammar. I check for sentence structure. When I think that the sentence might be too wordy, that it could be punchier, I'll make suggestions to do that. I also think about safety issues. When a child is on a bicycle, that child needs to be in a helmet. Is the child wearing a seatbelt? Is everybody wearing a seatbelt? Are the kids wearing life jackets? Another thing that came up in highlights a couple of days ago when I was copy editing an article for June. It was a child who wanted superpowers, and so his hideout was underneath the deck of his house. And I'm thinking, okay, there's dirt underneath the deck. It's outside. There could be ticks. There could be creepy crawly things. Do we really want the child under the deck? You know, and some of the things that I think of, you know, are kind of far out. Perhaps they'll think, oh, Joan, you're an idiot, you know, or your antenna is just way too high, you're way too sensitive, but that's what they pay me for. Perhaps it has to do with the fact that I'm a mother, now a grandmother. That's very much on my mind. Yes, I am a worrywart. My children will tell you that. They're both 32. I have twins. They'll tell you that. So this doesn't come off. There's his tail.
I think the founders of Highlights were really ahead of their time. They thought that kids were capable of thinking and reasoning at a much higher level and at an earlier age than was commonly thought back then. Their philosophy has always been that kids learn best through positive example.
We want to serve the whole child. So that means we're not just trying to stimulate them intellectually or teach them things or have them learn things. We want them to grow emotionally and learn how to deal with the things that come up in life. We want them to grow socially and to learn how to make friends and how to get along with people and how to function in social circles that will serve them through their whole life. We're really looking at a kid and saying, how can we help this kid become his or her best self?
I mean, Goofus and Gallant is a very didactic method of showing a moral, you know. Here's the bad choice, here's the good choice. So it's riddled throughout, and we hope that it's embedded in kids subconsciously. That's how you teach kids morals well, is by doing it without them knowing that it's happening.
Fun with a purpose. Those are not separate things. The purpose is part of the fun.
The fun comes first in that phrase. Kids are more likely to learn if they're having an enjoyable time.
We want to help you grow and learn, get excited about the world. And that's really what Highlights is to me.
We show how the world could be and should be within the pages of the magazine.
I think it's crucial for us to include cultural and religious diversity in the magazine because that's what makes the world interesting. You know, we're not all the same.
We're not looking at the diversity to be politically correct. It's so that each one of our readers can be represented.
You will see children of color. You will see girls in headscarves. We want kids from every walk of life to feel like Highlights knows me, knows my world, this is for me. And that requires a lot of intentional effort.
Dear Highlights is published on the back page of the magazine every month. The kids write to us about a variety of topics. Friends is always #1 category, has been since I worked on Kids Mail. My best friend has a new best friend, and she doesn't include me anymore. Or siblings. We get a lot of sibling letters from the boys. We reply to every letter that we receive from a child. The editors on staff answer some of the letters, and I answer a lot of them myself. I believe that we're the only magazine who writes to a child every time he writes. We get about 3,000 Dear Highlights letters a year.
What I do for the Dear Highlights page is choose the ones that I think will be good for publication, so ones that the whole audience might read. I think the reason kids trust us is that we don't talk down to them. We know that they're writing to us with a real issue that is very serious to them, and so I'm always thinking about that when I'm writing or choosing letters for Dear Highlights.
If it's a serious concern from a child, we call those the red tag letters. Say something about running away or abuse or even divorce. If it's like a real touchy situation, we kind of put a red sticker on those and try to respond to those as soon as possible. A little girl said that she was being abused by her babysitter, and she was told not to tell anybody, and this child confided in us. She didn't know what to do. Well, that was a case where we got the authorities involved, and the mother was so thankful because she had no clue, of course, that this was going on. And I asked myself, oh my gosh, can I do this job? I don't know, if, that's really shaken me here. But then I realized, well, thank God the child felt that she could write to us. And I know about the mass shooting a couple years ago at Sandy Hook Elementary. We got a few letters from kids on that. And really, what do you say? We just try to comfort them and do the best to reassure them that they're safe and there are people looking out for them. And things do change with the times, but I think the overall issues that kids have are basically the same.
I am the editor of some things that we kind of refer to as legacy features, which just means that they're long-standing features within the magazine. For many people, there is a particular feature that comes to mind if you say Highlights for Children magazine. And for some people, that's going to be the Hidden Pictures puzzle.
Ask Arizona is a feature that we publish every month. Arizona is an advice columnist. So there's a fictional letter at the start of the story, and then Arizona always coincidentally has some relevant experience that helps her to answer that kid's problem.
Highlights came to me and said, and would you like to come up with an idea for that story? And so that's how I came up with the idea for Ask Arizona. Arizona is a 12-year-old Latina girl who lives in the Mission in San Francisco. The Mission has changed a lot. It was many years ago that Arizona was born. It wasn't such a fancy neighborhood then. Now it's very, very gentrified. I don't know that Arizona's family would actually be able to afford to live in the Mission now. She was inspired a lot by my daughter. I am just about to write my 140th Ask Arizona story. I guess I look for questions that are sort of just human questions in general. Sometimes really big concerns come up for kids. transgender issues, or really, really scary environmental issues. I think Arizona addresses them in little ways. She's not able to sort of really jump all the way in feet first, but maybe she kind of touches on things as she can. It's challenging because I would really, really like to get into some more nitty-gritty stuff. But Highlights magazine tries to address 6-year-olds' questions as well as 12-year-olds' questions, and those are pretty different. I know that it makes a difference for kids all over the world. Several years ago, a girl was kidnapped. For many years, she lived in somebody's backyard, and he raped her, and she had his 2 little girls. She was allowed very, very few things from the outside world, and one of the things was Highlights magazine. So the idea for me that my stories about how to be a kind, real, feeling, decent human being in the world, and it's okay to be scared, it's okay to be nervous, it's okay to be angry. These little girls got that, was incredibly moving to me.
Dear Highlights. Dear Highlights. Dear Highlights. Whenever I'm playing the piano, my cat Baxter jumps up on the bench and starts rubbing against my legs. Is this because he likes my piano playing?
I love lizards. I try to bring them and tickle them and dress them up in my Barbie clothes. How do I set up a proper trap?
Dear Highlights, I am the slowest learner in my class. Do you know of anyone else who has the same problem?
Dear Highlights, my friend is upset because her mom is an alcoholic and she's not talking to me anymore.
I want to be a secret agent when I grow up, and I asked my mom about that career, and she said they were only in the movies.
Dear Highlights, my favorite color is brown. My friends say that it's the stupidest color in the book. What book are they talking about? I don't think my best friend is my best friend anymore.
I'm confused. Is smoking good or bad?
Nearly every day I feel like crying because I just feel like I'm not loved anymore. What should I do? I want to stay a kid forever. I love my birthdays, but I don't want to be older.
Dear Hattie, thank you for your letter.
Dear Greg, thank you for your letter.
Dear Shannon, thank you for your letter.
I can understand why you might not want to grow up when being a kid is so much fun.
It's great that you're so passionate about lizards.
I wish I could be more helpful, Shannon, but I also don't know which book they are talking about.
Darlene, I'm sorry you're going through this. We hear from many kids who experience similar things with their friends, so you're certainly not alone.
As lovely as a lizard may look in a dress, handling it will also cause it stress, which is dangerous to its health.
You might like to talk over your concerns with your parents who may have experienced similar feelings when they were your age.
All of us here at Highlights wish you the very best.
For June, we're really just starting layouts. So basically, Dave just places the text into the framework. Once that's finished, we send it up to Patrick.
I'm kind of putting together like a layout or roughing something in. We got it in from the editor downstairs. It'll go through the review process between the editors and Patrick. Right now, it's just a white page.
Hello.
Hey, in the Braille piece, we've got 2 sidebars. Do they have to stay together?
Well, I mean, I think that they need to see the alphabet in order to decode, right?
Yeah,
Is it too much space?
I'm like still in the infancy stages as far as the layout.
Okay, well, what you can do is, if you come up with a really great layout and we decide we need some text cut from the main article, I could probably take a look at it and see what we could do.
Okay, thanks. I'm the visual counterpart to Judy. She handles all the words, and I handle everything visual. When I came to Highlights, I saw an opportunity. I saw a lot of immediate changes I wanted to make to the magazine. There were too many fonts, too many colors, too much going on. Highlights is a well-known heritage brand that it looked like it was a heritage brand that needed to be brought into the 21st century. Things didn't feel cohesive. My side didn't have the same type treatment as Thinking or Timbertoes. It was all over the place. We wanted to kind of rein that in. So the templated pieces are templated for a reason, so it's going to stay the same every issue. Because we have so much other stuff changing within the issue, it's okay to have some stuff that they're familiar with. The first issue that I really felt like, yes, this is me, March of 2015. I started, my first issue was November. And I was still trying to feel things out. I was still trying to understand the children's market. Things clicked with me. I started feeling confident in where I was going with the redesign. It's like, yes, we're going in the right direction. Yeah, we just created these, I call them slugs, but ways of organizing the content of recurring departments and features. And the inspiration for the design for this actually goes back to old Highlights. So making something old, new again, and embracing our history. And it's an evolution. If you look at a magazine from 2 years ago to today, they look completely different. But as you're getting them in the mail, it's a slow change.
We're creating this magazine for today's kids. So we're always trying to think of kids today, what are they going to be looking for? What are they interested in? How do they want to receive their material?
It was always my goal this year to redesign the cover because the covers were getting a little cluttered. I'm really working with just a quarter of a page. You know, by the time you get that in there, it's not very large. So, you know, these are all things that we're exploring.
Highlights is always going through stages of redesign in style, which is a huge draw, I think, to the magazine. I mean, if a kid were to be handed a Highlights magazine from like 1947, they're not going to be as drawn to that because of the content inside is just not visually as appealing, and kids today like I today like brighter pictures and more, you know, more interesting things, less text, more focus on like awesome art. So in that way, we've stayed relevant because we try and keep up with styles that kids are going to be drawn to.
I feel a great responsibility as editor-in-chief of a magazine that has such a long history that really is an American icon. 2 o'clock in the morning when I think about that, it creates insomnia. We often talk about childhood as being a short, sweet season. There's this thing we've studied called developmental compression, which is the phenomenon of kids growing older faster. Kids physically are a little more advanced than, you know, they used to be. And cognitively, they're maybe a little more advanced. They're certainly more sophisticated. But their emotional, social-emotional development isn't necessarily keeping up.
I do think a lot of kids try to keep one foot in childhood and one foot in that preteen age. They are intrigued by that and they like it, but they still, I think a lot of them, there's a part of them that wants to remain a child and be a kid and enjoy the things they like.
We don't have so many 12-year-old readers. You know, occasionally I do get emails from kids who are 12, even 13 and 14, and they say they still love Highlights, or they confess to me that they still love to read their younger siblings' copy of Highlights. But they don't want to admit that they read Highlights, and they probably don't want a subscription coming in their own name, many of them. It's kind of sad, actually. They also tend to like magazines that have advertising as they age. That's part of the enjoyment for them to look at the ads for video games and fashion. It's just a natural part of growing up. And after they've outgrown Highlights, we're happy to send them off to another title that better suits their interests and their purpose and their age group, as long as they keep reading, you know. Magazines are terrific. There's a place for magazines in today's world.
Columbus, Ohio, we have the corporate headquarters, the operations, the marketing, finance, and human resources. You could say I've been part of Highlights and its mission for my whole life. My great-grandparents founded Highlights for Children back in 1946. As a member of the family, I've been brought up on our products, but also on the culture that our family has in support of this company. I grew up kind of a geeky kid. I fell in love with science, and frankly, until relatively late in life, never thought I would work here. Why would Highlights stay family-owned? I mean, I think over the years and different decades, we've been approached, and of course, people have made offers to buy the company. But I think along the way, throughout the years, the family's not been interested in making that move and cashing in. They want to continue this as a privately held, mission-driven company as long as we possibly can. We believe that we exist as a company for the benefit of children. We also exist for the benefit of our employees, for our customers, for the children, for our shareholders. We often say, no margin, no mission. I think generally there's a little bit of a slow decline in print subscriptions. We're losing kids a little bit younger than we used to lose them. But with the launch of High Five and then the launch of Hello, that's allowed us to grow in the younger age ranges, which has really kept us pretty flat. We're also able to reach international audiences, both in English and in translated versions. My main role on the sort of significant creative changes around design and the look and feel of Highlights is to wait till I see it in my house and send them an email saying how good it looks. But I don't weigh in and approve the design changes. It's fun to be in their offices. I mean, they get to try crafts and recipes, and they get to think about kids' jokes and art. I mean, it's fun, and it should be fun.
I love the funny letters that kids send in or the funny drawings. I think the kids' contributions are super important for the magazine to help ground us and remind us why we're doing what we're doing and who we're doing it for. Do you think this is a 7-year-old did this?
I don't know. It looks pretty advanced. It's hard when there's something really good and you assume the child couldn't have done it, and then
And
that
they
poor,
actually did it, yeah.
really good kid doesn't get in.
Right. I know. I hate that. I feel like his butt is so big.
Yeah, big butts.
Yeah. It's like a kid had to have done that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just gonna give her the benefit of the doubt, you know? All right. Thanks. For June, I have to pick out 5 boy poems and 5 girl poems, which is really hard because boys don't like to submit stuff to us. We get about 10% from boys and 90% from girls. So since we have to make it half and half in the magazine, it kind of means that like some good stuff that girls wrote can't make it in because we have to put in the stuff that boys wrote, even if it's just mediocre. This poem is about a Pegasus, and it says, look, it's a Pegasus, a beautiful horse with wings. And this is the drawing. It's like horrifying. Oh wow, the last 2 lines. Please do not destroy him. If you do, then be destroyed. Yikes. The magazine in general is trying to be pretty well balanced. We want to appeal to many different readers because, you know, we have readers of ages 6 to 12 and up, and some younger, and all over the country and all over the world, different hobbies, different religions, different holidays that they celebrate. So we're trying to find a balance that will appeal to everyone. So in your own pages, I'm trying to find that appeal on one spread using from 15 to 20 creative works from kids. And it's one of our more popular spreads too, I think, because kids like to see themselves in the magazine and be a part of it and see that kids help create that. We have to be careful what we put in the magazine. We avoid violence, no sex, no really hard-hitting controversial topics. Usually it's pretty tame. Occasionally I'll get something like, in this batch I had a drawing of the World Trade Center being hit by an airplane. I do get a lot of violent things, especially from boys. So like fighter jets and dinosaurs eating each other. That's too violent for highlights, so we can't do that. We can't do any swords, like attacking people or guns or anything. We want the magazine to be uplifting still. I mean, we're glad kids are expressing themselves in this way, but it's not the outlet we want to put it in. Like, it's not for your own pages.
People will say, oh, you're not presenting a realistic world to kids. Come on, there's violence out there. They should get used to it. It's there. You know, nothing's going to change unless they see it. Well, they do see it. So why would we present something that's already kind of everywhere?
Gun violence is a subject we probably wouldn't address directly to children. We wouldn't have an article in highlights about the police shootings or Black Lives Matter or even frightening things, natural events like hurricanes and tornadoes. We tend to not talk about those things in highlights.
Things that are coming out, such as building walls, keeping people out, religious tests, the racial turmoil that's going on. There is no better time for a child to read highlights because we're the antithesis of that.
There were Bible passages in the early issues, but the founders always published content about world religions as well.
I was actually very shocked. For some odd reason, I always thought Highlights was a Christian brand, and they're not. Having good morals doesn't mean you have to be Christian. You know, it's just knowing right from wrong. It's essentially what it boils down to.
Today, you could probably go back into the archives and back issues of Highlights and find some things that you would say today, well, that's probably a little politically incorrect.
Phrases or terms that we'd never use now, or even just the examples Goofus and Gallants set. The times change, and I think Highlights is a reflection of the times.
The more we all have access to more information, the more we are responsible for making better decisions.
What open-minded looked like in 1950 is different than what it looks like now, and is different than what it'll look like in 20 years. So we might look back at our magazines then and say, whoa, I can't believe we printed that, or I can't, you know, I wish we'd said it this way instead, or that we had gone in this direction that we didn't feel comfortable going.
Highlights donated the archives of our magazine, children's art and children's writings, and also a lot of the philosophy documents of Highlights to Ohio State University, because we really understood the tremendous value that could come for research.
We received about 300 different pallets from the Highlights company. Every single letter that a child ever wrote, we have acquired. There are students and faculty that are interested in illustration. Over the period of time, evaluating the artwork that is done and the message that it's sending. You have child growth and development within itself as a component of research. Really powerful things in the collection. The magazine can be used across the board as an educational tool within the classroom. It's strategic in terms of that. And they've used that as a learning tool to have that go home with the parents. So the cost is not necessarily geared towards the parent if it's a lower income family or in an urban setting. To my surprise, I wasn't even aware of how well known they were internationally, having it resonate with those cultures. I think it's had a huge impact in terms of children wanting to read, guiding them throughout their growth and development, getting excited about learning in general. The stories are a rich caliber in terms of research-based methodology. That's why the magazine has sustained and it continues to be one of the top children's magazines out there.
Highlights has been used as an educational tool since it started, even though it wasn't necessarily intended as that. I think it's very important to remember that the bulk of our subscribers are not in classrooms and they're not teachers. So we don't have an obligation to follow educational trends.
Teachers who are using Common Core guidelines find our magazines helpful to them, but we didn't change anything. The kind of things we've always published in Highlights dovetail nicely with the requirements of Common Core. I noticed that we lagged a little bit in our coverage of science and technology. It's hard to find people who can write about science and technology in a way that's interesting and that fits the magazine format. But I did ask the staff to be more intentional about finding articles related to STEM. We can do it. We can do it well, but it takes more effort.
We're starting a new column in June, which is very exciting. It's a robotics column. So we're gonna actually do a one-page feature probably every other month.
Robotics?
Robotics.
Oh, this is June.
Yeah. So this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking that for each column, we're limiting the words to 200, dominated by a really big visual.
We're 25 words over.
What's the word count?
Looks like 250.
Okay, I'll cut. I'll see what I can do.
I think the large image is what's going to draw kids in. If you're flipping through and you're like, what is that? I think and if they're interested in science, it really transcends sex or age, and it's more about a general interest.
I think robotics is sophisticated, and I think that as long as there's enough stuff for our younger readers in any particular issue, I think it's okay. We'll make sure that there's not too much text on the page. We'll make sure that
it's readable,
that the readability is good.
Science has been a really important part of Highlights from the very beginning. First, we want kids to be connected to nature. And secondly, we want kids to know that science is an ongoing, self-correcting process and not a collection of facts. I got a letter once from a boy who asked, when are we going to die from global warming? That's a pretty big question. It gives me pause. Before I answer a letter like that, it gives me pause, and it makes me think, are we doing things the way we ought to do in Highlights? And what age is the right age for kids to learn about things like that? I don't know the answer.
We are currently working on a piece on the polar bears. You know, we don't say, look at that poor polar bear on that block of ice, it's melting, he's gonna die, there's no seal underneath him. No, we describe the science, we talk about how it's a problem, we talk about what scientists are doing to observe what the problem is and perhaps how they can help it. We mention that it's melting. We want to offer them hope. We want to say, hey, here's your planet. You're the stewards of your planet. Here's some knowledge you can have. Perhaps this is something you want to go out and fix when you're grown-ups.
A lot of families don't agree with evolution, and they really don't want their kids to be exposed to it. We can't be the magazine for everybody, but we do agree with evolution. Our phrase is, we don't want to poke anybody in the eye with it. That's just not our way. But it would be irresponsible to bring up dinosaurs without talking about how long ago they lived and how we know what we know, because the evidence is straightforward.
What's appropriate for Highlights is something we're constantly evaluating.
You know, we tend to avoid political. We know we're serving kids all across the country and that their families are all across the spectrum.
We're neither red nor blue. We don't make judgments about people's lifestyles. We're all about trying to figure out how to help kids grow up healthy and happy.
I think Highlights doesn't want to say we don't do this or we don't do this or we don't do this. It's hard because I think we all would like to go further with the magazine, and there's this, you know, invisible border that we can't cross.
We know that there are certain readers who have written to us and said, Dear Highlights, you know, I am the child of same-sex parents. When are you going to show my situation in your magazine? And we've heard from same-sex parents themselves saying, hey, are you ever going to show us? Because we'd really love to see that. It'd be great. I'm sure the day will come, you know, but we haven't gone there yet. But I think that, you know, eventually you're going to want to show the reality.
I'm in a unique opportunity to expose kids to artwork that they might not normally be exposed to. Different styles, and get them to think about art in a different way. I already know the illustrator I'm picking. He can kind of, I don't know, he's got kind of a retro vibe here. He just reached out to me and I was like, oh. That's what makes art great, is that it can be anything to anyone. I just thought it'd be cool to have this very graphic clock in there. Or something else we could do is just, like you said, we see the clock on one side and we see the townspeople below. I look for illustrators typically through social media. You're getting a more intimate look at the illustrator as a person. I find it invaluable. You looking for me?
Yeah.
What's up? I just assigned What's Wrong and possibly Picture Puzzler, because what's more fun than having the Numberman family illustrated by Neil Numberman, who can also do a very...
Kind of a no-brainer, right?
Right. Very busy
It was
scene.
almost designed for that.
Right now we have 5% of the magazine laid out. Sometimes I'll make assignments as I'm doing the layouts. You gotta find the right artist with the right piece. Once the layouts are approved, finish up assignments, and then the sketches are coming in.
I illustrate for Highlights magazine. I do some hidden pictures, some mazes, some word searches, some crossword puzzles. The Brooklyn hipster artist maybe isn't the #1 choice usually. When you look at a Highlights illustration, you see, especially the hidden pictures, they're busy, they're fun. I love when I see a kid looking at my work and just fully engaged and just staring at it and looking all over the picture. The piece that I have in the June issue is the Numberman illustration. They came to me with the idea that there was a family called the Numbermans. Highlights took us out to a retreat, and it was literally a hidden pictures class. You can have more difficult ones and easier ones in an illustration. They actually prefer that so that the kid will find something easily and then start to get engaged with the piece. They want the hidden objects to stay away from the crotch. That's the funniest feedback, which includes sometimes I'll have a rooster and he'll have a tail and I'll say that could be a glove. But since the glove is coming out of the butt, you can't do that. My #1 goal is to get the Highlights cover. That would be amazing. I've gotten the back cover, and I got the back cover pretty quickly after they started hiring me. That was awesome because I literally saw a kid holding the magazine open, and my illustration was looking right back at me in a doctor's waiting room. But to get the front cover would be that ×2, pretty much.
Well, the numbers don't lie. I'm a goofus, not a gallant. Been here forever.
You know, I wouldn't be the moral and responsible person I am today if it weren't for Highlights magazine.
Goofus is cool.
We've seen spoofs of Highlights and spoofs of Goofs and Gallant and different features in Highlights.
Drake, that's Jack's Highlights.
She doesn't know my interests.
The New Yorker did a really good send-up of your own pages, and it was hilarious. And even when they're teasing us a little bit, we don't mind. Assuming that everybody's going to get the reference is a compliment in itself.
If you and Job were like those biblical brothers, Gallant and, Goofus.
Doofus is friendly, but he doesn't follow directions well.
For Christmas, I want to get Dr. Yap a subscription to Highlights. He loves that magazine.
I gotta say, I'm tired of Goofus and I'd like my Gallant back.
Alex had a poem published in Highlights magazine when she was 5 years old.
It was called Mr. Lamb Buys a Ham, but really it was about the Holocaust.
Art, can I get a subscription to Highlights magazine?
Homer, that's for children.
Go!
This is not on any agenda, but Sally, when she was going through her files, she found this. And I thought you might find it interesting. I'm going to make a copy and send it to Hillary for her file.
Dear Mr. Cronkite, thank you for sending us political conventions. We're happy to purchase all rights to this manuscript.
We brought a piece from Walter Cronkite in what year?
Wow, 1968.
Yeah. You know, we're always wondering.
This was in the
she found it in
our
file.
contract file.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about June.
This is a draft of the Hidden Pictures puzzle. We have a couple tweaks to make for the hidden objects.
Was that specially commissioned? Or?
Specially commissioned for the June issue. We thought kids making sandcastles on the beach. We have a couple changes we'd like to make. And I think that right now, when you look at it, your eye goes to that big lump of a sandcastle and the dog's everything but his head, you know, his body. So I'm not sure if we want to maybe have a kid here and put the dog somewhere else so that this isn't your front and center image. But I tossed it out there to Patrick and Linda and see what they think.
Where are you guys from?
We're from Michigan, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
That's a little bit of
area.
bit of a hike. Yeah. You guys want to see the coolest thing about The Office? Yes. Go look at the dinosaur. Take a look at his teeth.
Yeah, a dinosaur bone?
Yeah, it is a dinosaur bone.
You mean this is a T-Rex?
It's not a T-Rex. It looks a lot like a T-Rex, but it's a Giganotosaurus. Can you say that?
Giganotosaurus.
Yeah, you nailed it. Here's some more old copies of highlights. This is what it looked like in the 90s.
I might have even gotten that very same one. Who knows?
Yeah. This one's from the 80s.
That was even older.
And this one's from the first year we started making highlights. So take a look at that.
That's very, 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 very old.
Yes. See these people in the funny glasses? That's Gary and Carolyn Myers. I call them Garolyn, just as their celebrity nickname. Back in 1946, they said, let's make our own magazine for kids. And they started Highlights, exactly. So these are all their kids and grandkids, and some of these people still work here. Yeah. Do you guys know any good jokes or riddles? What kind of key doesn't open a door?
I don't know.
A turkey.
Why did the chicken did not talk to the picture?
Why?
Because it was turkeyed up.
Oh, turkeyed up.
What do you call an old ant?
What?
An antique. An antique, right? Antique.
Yeah, I like it. Maybe work on that punchline, but it was good. See, you guys got lots of jokes. Send us your jokes.
Bye.
Bye.
As we start to get sketches in, we look at it and we start to see like, okay, this is looking really great. Ooh, this is kind of a little stretch here. Let's mix this up a little bit. This is a little too, you know. I never want to settle for something that's just good enough. I don't like that. Let's keep working with it.
Oh, it's looking so much better already.
You like this better?
Yeah, I was really struggling.
There's the Goofus and Gallant. Actually, the artist is going to final on this. There was a few tweaks with it, you know. It's actually the positioning of the vacuum cleaner hose. So it's kind of wrapped around his leg, but it's also coming out from between his leg, and they want to make it quite clear that the vacuum hose is off to the side.
Well, guys, we were talking about the June cover, different ideas. Do you have any thoughts for illustrators for June or not yet?
Gotta be somebody who draws cats well.
Oh, Dennis Jones?
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
All right. Dennis Jones it is.
Yay!
I'm feeling lots of pressure because it's the 70th anniversary issue. The idea that I'm doing work that lots of people see around the world and that might be impactful in some way, hard concept for me to grasp because I'm just sitting here on the 3rd floor of my house. Patrick gave me the concept, a bunch of kids having a garage sale, and there would be a cat jumping around on everything and just causing chaos. Just go for it, and we'll pull you back if we need to. And this was the first sketch I did. It's kind of rough. I kind of start working on the cat. I think, well, maybe, you know, I'm kind of fine-tuning the cat, maybe not quite so scrawny and weird. And so finally, I go ahead and I put everything together, all my ideas, and I do this particular sketch right here. And that's the first thing that I sent Highlights. And what they sent me back were the editor's notes that told me what they wanted to do. Pull out on the shot a little bit because they thought that it might be a little less busy. They started going through going, get rid of this kid, get rid of this kid, get rid of this kid. A lot of kids. We're eliminating kids. We're going to make this a little bit simpler. So this is the second sketch that I sent them, literally. With this sketch, that would give us 2 girls, 2 boys, 2 parents. And so they gave me feedback right here. In fact, here's Patrick's note, much better, and then we're off to the races in Photoshop. And this is what the final cover looks like. So it's like, I think we're good to go on it.
We're in an exciting process of learning with respect to digital apps. We're trying to understand the behavior of kids once they're in the app. You know, what content do they consume? How do we evolve the product so they're more engaged, so that they get deeper into the content?
Kid advocate here.
As you should.
As I should, it's my job. You know, if you go there and it's the version of Highlights Every Day with the current available free content, it's not a very satisfying experience.
So my son said to me, he was 12, said, well, he said, you don't think there's gonna be a print magazine when I'm an adult? And I said, oh, uh-oh.
We don't believe ink on paper is going to go away for kids anytime in the near future. We are still evangelists for print, but at the same time, we try to find the content that makes the most sense to present to kids digitally.
But I wanna have a service to kids and a company that's agnostic of media type.
Fingerprint is a technology company that builds mobile platforms for media and content partners who want to have their own apps and digital content subscriptions. So this office is right on Union Square in the middle of San Francisco, the tech capital of the world, really. This is pretty much classic startup. It's open format, everybody in the same room, including the CEO. She doesn't have her own office. She just sits in the corner. And we work in the kids' space, you know, so it's a fun, bright environment. When we set out to make Highlights Every Day, we had to think about what would Highlights Magazine be if it were an app. So we have puzzles, hidden pictures, we've got interactive quizzes, we've got videos, which is new for Highlights, and we've got reading, which is of course core to the Highlights experience.
As nice it is to hold a book and hold something in your hands, it's going away. I think like a business like Highlights, they've got great content, they have great product. Doing this now to try to move into that digital age so they don't get left behind, like this is the time to be doing it, and I'm glad we get to work with them for it.
Most kids in the United States have a phone by the time they're 10 years old. 70% of kids in the US have a tablet by the time they're 8 years old. By the time kids are 12, they have their own social media accounts, and parents basically let kids have unlimited access to mobile. That's created an environment where pretty much anybody that's a content creator or a content distributor is trying to figure out how to get to that kid and family market with a high-quality kids experience.
You guys know last week I was at Highlights. We went over a lot of the initial kind of play data from the app to look at the breakdown of what content was actually being engaged with. Not surprisingly, puzzles are much more popular than any other content category, but kids are actually over-indexing slightly on quizzes too, which I thought was really interesting. And video and reading are both slightly less, although reading is still 12% of all content consumed. We can tell immediately whether something's being used or not. The amount of data that's available is almost overwhelming. It will be information that can be used by the editorial team at Highlights. It's been an adjustment of work styles. I mean, when you think about a magazine, the lead time on getting an issue out is, 9 months. So they're working on an issue for 9 months. Whereas in this world, there's just the ability to be much more rapid fire and respond more quickly to ideas, because you're not operating in the confines of a magazine format.
I think of Highlights as kind of a quiet moment amidst all of the noise happening in the world. Maybe that's an argument for print too. When you get a magazine, you go through the pages, you read some things, you learn some things, you do some puzzles, and you're able to think about yourself and your own interests.
The print product is still resonating with our readers today, with kids today. I know, just from personal experience, that kids like having it in their hands, like curling up with it. When given the choice, sometimes for some things they like to play on the iPad, and then for other times they just want to curl up with the magazine.
They like receiving something monthly in their mailboxes. They like the surprise of, oh yeah, here's another issue. It's good to get them more analog at times instead of digital.
I appreciate what the app is doing, and I think it is great that Highlights is reaching all those other kids. There's also room for the peaceful nature of the tangible magazine.
No, it needs to move to the right. Right. You move all that paper on the left. Do you think we can ruffle up his eyebrows a little bit?
Yeah.
Nice job on fluffing up the eyebrows.
Thank you. I'm a great fluffer.
That sounds awful. I thought we moved the yellow one down.
We did.
Not far enough.
Sorry.
Sorry. Here's a crazy thought. What if we just moved his bow tie? Would it be weird to wear a bow tie and a hat on the same side?
It's an elephant wearing a bow tie, so I'm not sure what the rules are. You want to make sure the picture represents the craft accurately, and that a kid can look at this picture and see how to make it.
I think we're pretty good with this shot, though. How long is it going to take to make the pizzas?
My thoughts on how long it takes to cook things are always a little
off?
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be tough.
It's weird when you're doing it for the visual, because we've done it for the taste, but to do it for the visual, it's a different, I don't know, it's a different way of thinking about it. So do you want strips of bacon across? You want crumbles. Okay, great.
Bacon bits. And that pizza, I'm really worried about the pizzas and how long it's going to take.
From what he's saying, he wants that. Jeez, I almost dropped it. Thank you.
I got it.
Thank you.
All right, we've got our first victim. It's hot and fresh out of the oven. Let's shoot and see what we got. 6 slices to this pizza.
Okay.
Is that perfect? I think it looks great.
Great. Oh, that looks beautiful.
Is this what you envisioned?
It is. Nice.
All right, it's a wrap.
Thank you.
Leaving to move out to Utah. My husband's starting school out there. It's kind of fun to work at a place where you can be like, I've been here this many years. Life is crazy. There are lots of twists and turns, and I never thought I'd be going back to Utah, and I am. So, I mean, you never know what's gonna happen. The amount of sadness that I have felt, I've been repressing. I don't want to deal with it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm leaving in a few days, but whatever, everything's fine and normal. I'm going to miss the people I've worked with because it's like the best team possibly I could have worked with. I think it's such a unique experience where I won't have it again. I feel like I landed my dream job very early in my career. This is what I was building for my whole life. So I got really lucky, but I hope that I've left a good mark on Highlights and that I know it's left a good mark on me and that it's really great memories. Really, it was a wonderful 4.5 years. So I'll miss it.
Hello. Okay, do you want to come over? I'm wondering if we could play with the title a little bit.
Table of contents isn't even done yet, by the way.
The illustrators send final art, then Patrick's able to start placing them.
What you got? What you got? Freddy's superpower.
Yeah.
Very Superman-ish.
That's cool.
That work?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Nice work.
We're trying not to do label titles. We're trying to give it something active.
Do you want something like Wing It?
Wing it with the, oh, that's cute. Let's play around a little bit. Wing it. I like it, Linda. A furry fruit bat wings it. I like that. Do you like it?
I like that better than the other ones.
All right, well, listen. This is not my final sign-off. This is my pre-final sign-off. So if you think of something else, come back. It's really mostly fine-tuning at this point. I want to be able to read that piece with my critical editorial eye 3 times without making a change. Having the art there adds a new element, such a huge part of the magazine. If we want to swap something out, do it now. Make sure you do it early enough that, you know, we can squeeze it in.
The comp meeting is where we see all the pages up together, back to back for the first time. A lot of the things that are in place, they've just come under the line, you know, and we just need to get them in there. So that's usually what we're doing at the last minute.
The nice thing is we have that meeting early enough so that we can make adjustments between today and the point where we have to sign off on everything. It gives us an opportunity to look at the whole issue. What's the pacing? What's the flow? What are we missing? What do we have? What don't we have? To balance it out. A good experience from beginning to end for all of our readers.
What if we did, in order, we I don't know, I'm just moving things in my head and
How do you like pause and think next to that mixed page, Patrick?
yeah, I would like to,
You think it feels a little busy?
yeah, I'd like to get something simple next to pause and think. Yeah, that's better.
You like that better?
Yeah. Yes.
My first thought was it'd be fun to get Freddy's superpower right up there.
Yeah.
But then, like, switch those two spreads with those
Yeah,
two spreads. But
I
then, I don't know if we want to help the cartoonist that close to your own pages, though. But
Oh, let's
We
not
can
worry
put it
about
on
that. I think you're right on bringing this guy up, right?
Right.
Are we all good? We like this flow?
Yeah, I think it looks great.
It's hard to step back and take a look at something. The cover, it was almost like the perfect storm of things. The concept was super busy. All that coming together, it just didn't work. Clear the cover. We decided to test it with the kids.
You can be brutally honest. Yay or nay? Somewhere in the middle.
A few things shouldn't be there because there's like too much. I don't understand like what's happening in it.
Do you think there's too much happening in the scene? Is it too cluttered?
I only think right here, right here.
Thank you for your feedback. I'll take those.
In hindsight, I'm like, wow, I totally see it now. It's a little too much. Too much is going on. To tell somebody you're doing our cover and then to say, yeah, we've changed our mind, that's tough. I mean, the illustrator did exactly what we wanted. But when we sat back and looked, it was, is this where we want to move forward? Is this where we want to be going? And the ultimate answer was no. It was the last piece of the puzzle of the redesign was the cover. We had to simplify it. I'd done that on the inside. We just made it easier for the eye to travel across the page.
Probably the last cover change was 2006, so it's been 10 years. So it's kind of a big deal.
You have to agree that's a better cover than the first one, right? I love that illustration. It just wasn't a good cover. Here's a new joke. I have a collection of Russian nesting dolls. Guess why I don't like them? Why? They are full of themselves. Just when you think you've seen every single joke. You haven't. It's a good one. That is a good one. When I started writing the editor's message, I felt like I had really big shoes to fill. I really view that editor's message as the front porch of our magazine. They're waiting on me at this stage. This is the last thing to be created.
All right, this, I don't know how I messed this up. This should not be hyphenated at all. I mean,
How should we hyphenate this to make it?
well, rice cereal and marshmallow treat, because the noun is really the
Okay.
treat is really the noun here.
Okay, and marshmallow won't come up, so this would be on this line.
Yeah.
We'd add 2 hyphens there.
Right.
Good catch. Thanks. Editorially, we should be pretty well finished with the issue. We have to look at the June issue and think about which pages are going to be challenging on our paper, which ones are gonna, maybe you won't reproduce that well, but the exciting news is we're upgrading our paper and it should be in place by the June issue.
Take down the magenta 5% and the orange and it'll be better.
Every issue is a journey. And we never know, what kind of bumps and potholes and roller coasters we're gonna hit along the way, but by the time the final issue comes out, the reader just sees the end result. They just say, wow, this really came out great. And they don't know that it was difficult or how much we stewed over different things or how many times we changed the wording of a particular sidebar. I'm like, does it look great in the end? That's the measure of it. I look through a dummy and I just see every iteration that had come before.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting.
There's a nice variety of art style in this one.
Patrick mixes it up. He does a nice job of that.
Mm-hmm. The whole thing feels a lot fresher, more open. Mm-hmm. By providing more illustration, we haven't really lost much in terms of text.
And I feel that when a page or a spread looks more engaging, more kids are going to stop on it and read it. More kids are going to be compelled to visit that page or that spread.
Many people don't think about our magazine as being consumable like a newspaper,
Right.
I mean, it may be a magazine, but we should always remember it can have a long shelf life. Okay. Another one put to bed. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Judy.
Yep.
Highlights is extremely unique. Being ethical is one of the mission pillars. Not a lot of companies can say that.
That is what Highlights is about. We always have what is in the child's best interest, period. That's it. That's what we're concerned with.
It is really fun with a purpose. It's our way of making the educational stuff appealing, palatable, even desirable. And I think we're pretty good at it.
We're trying to create kids who are creative, who care about other people, who are thinking and reasoning beings. How could we not all benefit from more of that?
It's neat that so many things sort of converged for the June issue, the 70th anniversary. It's a good time to have a little facelift.
The June issue turned out great.
That was kind of like the culmination of all the redesign work that had been going on.
We have better paper, the photos pop more. Patrick's influence is seen in almost every page now.
I feel good about the June issue. I think it has a nice balance of content. I think there's a lot of engaging, fun stuff in there.
Well, since I haven't heard to the contrary, I will say there are no mistakes in the in the June issue.
I thought the overall feel of the magazine was nice and looked fresh.
We got the best email from a dad who shared his young son, I want to say he was like 7, holding out like the taco pizza, and the kid is beaming.
It's such a clear moment in a kid's life, and it just helps you remember who your audience is and feel like you're connecting with them individually and getting a sense of their spirit, and I think that's helpful in all of the work that we do.
We want kids to be excited about learning. We want them to see all of the possibilities in the world.
For almost everybody, Highlights is a warm fuzzy. It is a happy childhood memory.
Every month, we have a new opportunity to make the best magazine we can for kids.
That's a really, really rewarding thing, and I think that is why most of us are here.
It's relevant and it's modern and it's as meaningful and as needed today as it was 70 years ago.
Dear Highlights, I have been reading your magazine for a very long time.
I just finished reading your latest issue and saw that this is your 776th issue.
Even though I'm 13, I still love your magazine. So I just wanted to tell you how much I love Highlights.
P.S. Your magazines rock.